If you've ever craved a heavy meat lover's pizza, you know what the ideal slice looks like as it gets pulled away from the pie. It is thick, savory, and perfectly intact. But when you try to recreate this at home, you often end up with a structurally compromised mess, a soggy, limp center that collapses under its own weight, swimming in a pool of orange grease. Fixing this starts with gathering the correct materials. You need room temperature pizza dough, tomato sauce, mozzarella, Parmesan, and your 5 chosen meats. And before you prep anything else, turn your oven on and set it to 500 degrees Fahrenheit. Achieving pizzeria-level structural integrity in a home kitchen requires a specific workflow. You have to treat managing the heavy toppings and baking the crust as 2 separate scientific processes. Step 1 is moisture control. Take your thickest proteins, the sausage, the bacon, and the ground beef, and cook them in a skillet first. You want them fully browned, and you need to drain away all the excess fat. This is an essential step for food safety. A pizza cooks quickly in a hot oven. If you place raw, thick pieces of pork or beef onto the dough, they simply will not have enough time to reach a safe internal temperature. This diagram illustrates the second major problem. When raw meat heats up, it releases a massive amount of liquid and rendered fat. If those droplets render directly onto raw dough, they flood the cellular structure of the bread, which guarantees a soggy crust. Pre-cooking those heavy proteins certainly adds roasted flavor, but more importantly, it serves as the critical moisture control step required to keep the foundation of your pizza crisp. This image shows the proper way to handle your room temperature dough. Notice how it is being stretched by hand. Rolling pins crush the natural gas bubbles created by yeast, but pulling the dough gently preserves those air pockets to ensure a lighter crust. Once it is stretched to roughly 12 inches across, move it to a baking sheet or pizza stone dusted with cornmeal. The cornmeal acts like tiny ball bearings, preventing the wet dough from adhering to the hot metal or stone. Now apply exactly half a cup of pizza sauce. Spread it evenly, but be strict about leaving a half-inch bare border around the perimeter. It might be tempting to ladle on extra sauce, but tomatoes are mostly water. Adding too much introduces excess moisture directly to the base, turning the center to mush regardless of how well you prepared your meat. Next, scatter 2 cups of shredded mozzarella over the sauce. A thick layer of high-moisture cheese acts as a functional barrier, separating the wet tomato base from the heavy protein layers we are about to add. By handling the dough gently and carefully measuring your wet ingredients, you build a rigid, capable foundation ready to support the meat. Step 3 is assembly, and the order matters. Start with your flat meats. Lay the pepperoni and ham down first, placing them directly against the mozzarella. Take those heavier, pre-seared crumbles, the sausage, the bacon, and the beef, and scatter them evenly over the flat meats. Then finish the assembly with a light dusting of Parmesan. As you build this layer, resist the urge to completely cover the surface. You want to leave visible negative space between the pieces of meat, rather than creating a solid blanket of protein. Leaving those gaps allows the mozzarella underneath to bubble up through the layers as it melts. This integrates the cheese with the heavier meats, locking the toppings in place so they do not slide off when you take a bite. Take your fully loaded pie and place it on the lowest possible rack of your oven, which should now be roaring at 500 degrees. Watch the transformation in this time-lapse over the next 10 to 15 minutes. The cheese is actively melting, the crust is browning, and the edges of the pepperoni are curling and crisping under the intense heat. Placing the dough near that 500-degree heat source triggers an immediate thermal shock. This provides rapid oven spring, puffing and solidifying the dough to create permanent structural rigidity before the toppings have a chance to release any remaining moisture. When the crust reaches a deep golden brown and the meats are audibly sizzling, pull the pizza from the oven. Now comes the hardest part. You must let it rest on a cutting board for at least 1 full minute before making a cut. If you slice into it immediately, the molten cheese and the heavy toppings will not have had time to set. The downward pressure of your knife will push that carefully built architecture right off the crust. Give it 60 seconds to set up. Then make your cuts. By separating the cooking processes, controlling the moisture in your proteins, and utilizing the thermal shock of a hot oven, you eliminate the grease pool. You take a heavy, loaded dish and turn it into a structurally perfect culinary achievement.